Welcome back to another episode of the Supply Chainy podcast. I am your host, Nathan Cheney, and today we're talking to Kyle about brokerage, about virtual assistants, about building your own business, and a little bit of a combination of all those things as well. Kyle, can you take a minute to introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about what you're up to these days?
Yeah, Nathan, appreciate you having me on the show. Happy to go into my background, right? I'm originally from Annapolis, Maryland, but I'm currently in Atlanta, Georgia. I got my start in logistics. My story goes kind of like this, right? Moved to
Okay.
Atlanta to go to college. I attended Emory University and graduated with a degree in economics. It was 2009, which was the recession, so there were no fancy economics jobs to be gotten. So I did what any good kid would do to make my parents happy and got the first job that was offered to me at Echo Global Logistics as a freight broker. I had no idea what this was, but pretty quickly I found out it was cold calling. Um, Long story short, I really enjoyed cold calling. I couldn't believe that you could call up warehouses and convince them to start spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with a new college grad. And pretty quickly, I became sales rep of the quarter at Echo Global Logistics, which I was quite proud of being a new college grad. From there, I put that on my resume so that I could increase my salary above kind of your entry level pay. I got another job as a freight broker at a smaller company called Trans Dynamics. That was 40 people all under one roof. That gave me the opportunity to really see how a logistics company operated. And by the time I was 30, I was ready to start my own, right? I was sick of um, my commissions mostly going to the company. I think I was making less than 15% on the dollar at that point. And I knew that to continue such a hard job of being a freight broker, if I was going to do that for the rest of my life, I really needed to increase that percentage I was taking home. And so that's where Yellow Diamond Logistics was born, my first business.
I also graduated in 2009, the exact same year, and was an intern at PepsiCo at the time. And there was a hiring freeze. And if I wanted a full time job, I had to go into 3PL world. And so, yeah, was kind of right there with you in that great time to be starting a career. So you went to the freight brokerage side, did some Echo, did some other sort of stuff. What are you up to these days?
Yeah, so to finish that story, right? I opened Yellow Diamond, and there's a couple interesting things about that logistics company, but the most interesting is this, right? When it came time for me to hire my first employee, and I was looking at pulling $50,000 out of my pocket to pay someone in America to call up a trucker, ask where they were, get the answer, and write it in a computer program, I just couldn't do it. So at the time, I knew there were things called virtual assistants in the Philippines, which were just English speakers that knew how to use Microsoft Office. I figured this for a lower cost would be better than hiring and firing, $50,000 Americans. And so I went to the Philippines. I met a guy named JP, and pretty quickly, I live broadcasted just like we're doing the podcast today. Everything I did as a freight broker, negotiating with truckers, making cold calls. And long story short, I looked up 4 years later. I had close to 100 people in the Philippines. We were doing 50 million a year as a brokerage. At EBITDA margins much higher than what's normal in that industry. And so that's when kind of the second chapter of what I do started. I opened a company called Thrivemodal, which was, what I call now the best US based staffing firm for Filipino talent in the world. I didn't do this because, I was trying to be an entrepreneur. I was more or less forced to. Family friends kept coming to me saying, "How in the world did you grow so quickly at Yellow Diamond? What are you doing over there? And how can you make it happen in my accounting firm or my healthcare company or my marketing firm? Or can you just do my marketing for me?" And so that's when Thrive Modal was born. And from there, we really graduated from what I would call, and this is something I think a lot of people in the US kind of have a misconception of today. A lot of people, once COVID happened, really got excited around the virtual assistant world. What can English speakers at lower cost countries do for somebody in the US? And admittedly, I grew my logistics company with just that type of people. And I grew a great logistics company. You know, we grew faster than a lot of people. Um, and we had notoriety of being a uh, a brokerage of high service. And so when family friends with healthcare companies and accounting firms started challenging me to staff their businesses, you know, I really needed to dive deeper in what I was doing in the Philippines. What I thought to myself was, you know, if these English speakers who've grown up in the computer era can do so much for a logistics company, you know, what can we do if we're able to get the controller of one of their Fortune 100 companies working within a US company? And so that's really where my Thrivemodal talent journey started, right? It was about 4 years ago. I went to a conference, and this was before I talked about all the high level jobs you could do in the Philippines. I was just talking about what I did and built with my logistics company. And a friend came back and said, Kyle, you know, can you find me an electrical engineer with a master's in electrical engineering for my solar panel manufacturing company in New Jersey? And I honestly laughed. I kind of said, you know, were we part of the same conversation there? Um, but at the same time, you know, I had never fallen short of what I could find in the Philippines. So luckily, this was a friend. And I told him, listen, you know, as long as you have no expectations, let me do the best I can do here and I'll bring it to you. And we'll just kind of grade what that looks like. And what I ended up doing was finding a guy named Daryl Latrada. He had a master's in electrical engineering. He was in the Philippines. He ended up replacing a University of Delaware graduate who also had a master's in electrical engineering, who was earning $140,000 a year, and Daryl's fee was $16 an hour. Um, this was over 3.5 years ago. I just had kind of my yearly check-in with Daryl. He's number three at that company. He handles all the correspondence with municipalities changing drawings. He does all of the recoding and reordering when they need um, new solar panels on the roof. And he's just super happy there. And really, when that job happened, Nathan, that's where kind of my overall thesis changed from there's not just virtual assistants all over the all over the world, great English speakers who know how to use Microsoft Office. Really what's going on is it's just a new time. And in a place like the Philippines, English is the language from birth. Now they've grown up in the computer era, just like we have. They go to college for the same majors that we do, and then when they graduate, they get jobs at all the same industries that we have here in the US. So at the end of the day, you know, what I'm going to say is it's not that far fetched to think that every single job that exists here in the United States also exists in the Philippines, and there's an English speaker who grew up in the computer era who went to college doing that job. And that's my specialty is finding that person for businesses in the United States. And I've been doing it across finance and accounting, healthcare, marketing, executive assistants. We staff investment banks, law firms. If it can be done, it can be done in the Philippines. And that's kind of where I stand today.
I'm curious, could you talk a little bit about the choice to go, and do this with folks in the Philippines versus other countries? Can you, any sort of lessons or things that you found while you were doing that initial research on, where the talent is and best infrastructure, all that sort of good stuff?
Yeah, great question. And I was thinking along all of those lines, right? So a thing that not everybody in America knows is that English is the language from birth in the Philippines. There's tons of different dialects of the Filipino language because there's tons of different islands. And because of that, they all speak English from birth. So that is, the number one factor. You've got this great English speaking country in Asia. Um, Number one, right? Number two is about 8 years ago, the Philippines as a country made a large investment in their Wi Fi capabilities, making them um, the lowest GDP per capita country speaking English with the best Wi Fi. Now, there's no real term to kind of coin what that is, but at the end of the day, it really just is. These are the best English speakers in the lowest cost portion of the world with access to the internet. And because that is where you want to go, right? We've got competitors in South and Central America. And the truth is, what an accountant gets paid in Mexico is getting somewhat similar to what they're getting paid in the United States. And so there's no longer really even that golden opportunity in Mexico to work online for a US company. And so that's why we are looking to Asia, is the GDP per capita there is still probably 3 or 4 times less than Mexico. And so it creates an enormous opportunity for both US companies who want highly skilled English speaking labor, accountants, finance people. And then also in the Philippines, it creates an amazing opportunity for people who have gone out and gotten educated to come work for US companies where we provide upward career mobility. And also, what is everybody else looking for? Well, the commute in and out of Manila, if you're lucky, is 3 hours. A lot of us in the United States got used to not having a commute during COVID. The best candidates in the Philippines now no longer want a commute. And that's another reason they're entering this worldwide market, is they're seeing it's being done in other countries. And they've been the CFO of one of the biggest companies over there for 15 years. And they've made a lot of money, but they're also sick of that commute, and they'll do anything to work for a U.S. company to give that up, just like a lot of us here change careers or change what we were doing, just not to go into the office. And so that is one of the things that I love, is this is truly a new grade of candidates. This is people coming from the Fortune 100 companies in the Philippines with 7, 10, 15 years experience, leading departments, leading the thoughts of where they're going to go. um, these are career driven people, and that's what I had to solve, is we wanted to get rid of the task oriented gig economy workers that are so common in the virtual assistant virtual workforce. They're great, and they've gotten us, a lot of us, pretty far, but I knew there was a lot more to this, and that's why I've created pretty much the best recruitment organization in the US for Filipino executive talent.
It's something that's crossed my mind as a small sort of startup business. For folks in that sort of startup mode, what's a good first step for them if they want to consider doing this? Like, what does that look like from a logistics and like a onboarding process perspective?
Let's just talk about marketing in the United States, right? So the structure of my company is based off of my disdain and my distaste for a lot of the marketing companies that exist here in the United States. I feel that they are overpriced. I feel like they will sell to anybody that finds them, regardless of the solution that's actually going to be effective for that customer. And so I've watched a lot of marketing companies, get paid retainers and then really never put out results for that client, right? I've watched clients take the first $30,000 of profit they've made and find an excellent marketing company and look at that as an investment into new meetings and new growth, and then get absolutely nothing. Um, and so my structure at Thrivemodal is really derived from that, you know, negative experience in business. So what does it look like to work with me at Thrivemodal? Well, first, the only thing you need to do as a client of mine is fill out what's called a hiring requisition form. That's a fancy word for a job description. And the reason that you've got to do that and I can't is Nathan, only you know what a senior accountant at Supply Chain You looks like, and how that's different than a senior accountant at my company, right? You have different software, you have different people that work there, you have, different items being depreciated. So you're going to want to profile that job exactly how you would be hiring for it, just for you guys locally. From there, I'm going to review the form, right? You may say you only need 3 years of experience, but we'll give you the opportunity to say that you want 9 or 10. And so based on that, I'm going to send you back a quote. The quote's just saying, hey, Nathan, you need a senior accountant. You said you want 9 years experience. In our experience, that's $2,500 a month for a full-time person. There's no credit card or anything. It just serves as a jumping off point for us. From there, you're going to wait 3 weeks. You're going to do absolutely nothing. I'm going to be interviewing candidates, and what I'm going to provide to you is videos of those interviews. So off the bat, you can click in and you can see, how does this person sound? Are they happy? Is this somebody I would want making outbound calls for my company? Or, does it not matter because they're just a strong accountant? At the end of the day, it is very important, though, that you get to take a look and make a decision. How do I like this person? How do they sound? From there, you get to take a look at their resumes, which I send to you. They've been background checked and employment verified. So if you're in the accounting sector, you might see, hey, this person worked for Ernst& Young, for a manufacturing company in the United States for the last 8 years, providing accounting support. Or you might see, oh my goodness, this guy did the marketing for National Geographic for the last 7 years. And when you see something like that that makes you want to interview them, we set you up with an interview. I'm not there. Nobody from my team is. You're going to interview them just like you were interviewing locally here in the United States. You can spend an hour doing that. When you can come back to me and say, Kyle, I was amazed with the interview. The resume was amazing. It's a perfect fit. We'd like to hire them. I'm going to challenge you even further. We will do any sort of skills test that you guys have for your people in the United States. So for accounting, controllers, for valuations people in law firms, most of the time our clients, have work that they like them to do to prove that they've got these backgrounds. We'll do that for you. And so only when you say, Nathan, wow, this guy's a 10 out of 10 fit. I've met him. I've given him skills tests. He seems to be the real deal. Only then on day one do we start charging you. And then from there, there's no long-term contracts, meaning if 3 hours into day one, this person was $12 an hour, and it's just not what you thought through your interviews and your background checks, well, you owe me $36 for those 3 hours, not for the rest of the month or the rest of the year. The reason I do that, Nathan, is this, right? My average tenure now of somebody that I've placed is 3.6 years, meaning my clients in the United States are deeply happy with what they're getting. And also, my people in the Philippines enjoy their job. They're making more money. They've got a better work life balance. And then there's no upfront fees or long term contracts, meaning if this goes sideways, like a marketing company, you haven't spent tons of money out of pocket. You haven't spent $10,000 a month hoping to get meetings with your clients. This is proving that we are as good as we say we are every minute, every month, and every year we do business with you. We work on a merit-based system where I need to be creating value for you today when I find this person, and a year from now as you're scaling the marketing side of your business. I know what I'm saying here could sound too good to be true, but I'm not going to put you on the hook for any money to find out. I'm going to let you find out for free too. And when you are very much so convinced, that's when we will start billing you. I completely, like to prove ourselves on the front end. And that's, again, it comes from the marketing thing where I believe you've got to be producing for your clients and providing value.
Clearly you've had some experience in being a business owner, operator, builder of things, and you're doing some things right, clearly. And so maybe we can talk a little bit about some of the lessons you've learned, some of the struggles you maybe had as you've built your business or businesses, that care to share.
We'll start with a couple mistakes, right? So early on, a lot of people, they start a business and they just immediately think, okay, who's going to be the CEO? Who's going to be the CFO, right? I see a lot of people think that. And so, a great visionary, the first thing they may do mistakenly is go look for that CFO before they have a large business to run. And so, when I started Yellow Diamond and we started growing, and the revenue numbers went into the millions, I assumed a CFO was needed. I enticed somebody being a new company to join my company with equity. Um, and at the end of the day, what I realized was I simply needed a bookkeeper, to keep tabs on what we were spending, to do AR and AP. And so really, kind of making a big mistake like that, trying to, incentivize personnel in the beginning and putting in bigger positions than you actually need to run your business, was just a misconception I had from, seeing org charts and then not knowing where to start with my own. I've had months, um, where, you haven't seen friends and family as much as you wanted, or you find out, the month later that your wife wasn't happy with how much time you spent with them that month. Those are things I look back on, and I do regret, right? I read a book recently called, I believe it was called High Performance Leaders. And I always looked at myself as a high performance leader. So I was wondering why somebody told me to read the book, just being frank. And I pretty quickly, once I opened it, understood exactly why they told me to read it. That book starts by defining a high performance leader as not just somebody who excels and builds businesses faster than everybody else, but the most important part is somebody that has fun and enriches their lives and the lives of others while they're accomplishing that business mission. And one of the things I definitely noticed about myself was, do I build businesses fast? Yes. Do I create significant value for my clients? Yes. But what was I sacrificing along the way personally to do that? And was it really a skill if I was giving away, so much of myself and so much of my family's, life? And the answer to that is yes, it's a skill, but it's a much greater skill to be able to grow businesses while keeping, a great family life and empowering the people around you, and just creating positivity. And that's what I focus on today. Is it's great to build a business fast, and it really is, but there's no sense doing it if you're stressed the whole time and you're not healthy.
You almost kind of touched on you want for people to see you as someone that they want to emulate or someone that they learn from. One of the audiences that kind of I like to talk to through this podcast is students and those that are in business school. Maybe they're studying economics or marketing or logistics, and I like to try to ask each of my guests if they could share any words of wisdom or what they might suggest that those students do if they want to be in your position one day.
Yeah, so Nathan, I'm gonna go a little bit different route on this one than you suspected, right? And I've had a lot to think about this specific question. I'm actually getting up at 5:30 tomorrow morning, to go with my wife, who's speaking as an alumni, at her high school here in Georgia, just to high school seniors right now on what they should do. And it is funny, because we've been talking a lot about it, and obviously the message, that private school wants us to deliver is about going to college and spending that money and developing skills there. Um, and I'm not trying to be radical at all, but I don't suggest going to college anymore. Um, there's going to be new iterations of colleges that are a better bang for your buck, where you're not going into the debt that you would be today without the assurance of covering that debt later on in life. I think the college system has gotten out of control in what it costs. I also think it's gotten out of control in what it teaches, right? It really needs to be revamped. Even looking today, with just the advancements in AI, fact-based learning, um, isn't quite as interesting as it used to be, right? There's almost an argument for, you don't even need to know facts anymore. You just need to know how to support and to argue those facts, and that may be the talent that differentiates yourself, 10 years from now in this AI era. So, I think this, right? I think information and access to information and the ability to be taught that information through things like chat gpt is at an all-time high. I don't think there's a single subject being taught in college right now that you couldn't learn in half the time on the internet by yourself. And to take it one step further, you can go and be an intern for 6 months, and instead of paying a college the amount of money you would, you can do it for free a couple different times. um, Learn skills and see where you fit in and what you like. I think the value of a paper degree is going down, and I think it'll continue to go down. And so that is my answer to that question.
I think you and I have both probably interacted with plenty of successful folks that did not go to college, right, and that don't have that degree, and so there's there's obviously an indication of success, that there's a way to be fulfilled and happy and challenged and contribute to society without that degree. And so I appreciate you kind of stepping out and making a case for that.
Look at, what other countries around the world are doing in this area. And I think you'll find, I'll let you do your own research, but I think you'll find that a lot of people are pivoting. There's at least 35 countries ahead of us in education right now. So I suggest everybody take a look at what they're doing and why they're ranked ahead of us. Because that is something that's changed dramatically, I think, since 2009, right, Nathan, when you and I graduated. And I'll just go ahead and call it out. I'm pretty sure we were number one back then.
There is this proliferation of virtual assistants and whatnot, and so there's probably a little bit of crowding in the space and whatnot. Where do you see that space going? If a majority of the people in the Philippines are all working higher paying jobs for American companies, or supporting businesses that are around the world, then that's going to change the economics of living there and being a workforce that's in the Philippines. And so things will shift inevitably. What are your thoughts, 5 years from now, 10 years from now?
Do I think we're going to have less offshore talent or more? Vastly more, right? People costs are a large cost in business, and people in the United States are extremely expensive. Right now, 65% of the Filipino economy works overnight for the US economy, meaning the only other 35% are your laborers and your kind of service workers. So what does it actually look like in the worldwide workforce right now? Well, if you're in the Philippines, working at night is a good thing. It means you're one of the most talented people there, because it means your skill set is wanted somewhere else besides the Philippines. A lot of people don't know that, but it's true. It's an honor to work US hours. And that's what a lot of people are striving for now, because again, going and getting US dollars versus Filipino pesos is going to put your family ahead. And so that is the desire of the top candidates in the Philippines. They want to compete with the top candidates in the world. And rightly so. I think, maybe 10 years from now, you could say that it doesn't matter where you are in the world, the best accountant, whether they're in Kenya or whether in New York City, what they're being paid is going to be a lot closer together 10 years from now than it is now. And that's just the fact of it. The world is becoming a worldwide workforce where it doesn't matter what country you're from anymore. You can work as long as you speak the language, which probably won't be a problem 5 years from now either. You can work within a company from a different country. One thing I also like to point out about the Philippines is this, right? People may say, well, Kyle, what about the young Americans and the jobs here, right? These track and trace jobs you've given away in logistics. Well, trust me, the people who were making $50,000 a year to come in and call trucks and ask where they were and write them in a system, they gave those jobs away a long time ago. They were the type of people who only came to work 3 or 4 days out of the week. And 4 months into it, they're taking a week off. They're the type of people that you were turning over in those roles nonstop, and it was a constant headache for your company. The worldwide workforce is straightening that out. Now a track and trace job is a fabulous job in the Philippines. It's a job you can support your grandparents and your aunts and uncles while working at, right? And so at the end of the day, all of these efficiencies are good. This is one thing that's always bothered me with US companies who don't have enough money to treat their US employees correctly, right? So I've worked at a company and I've started my own businesses a couple times now. The only fault and the only person to blame, if there's an employee that's being underpaid, that can't support their life and their family, the only person to blame is the person who created that company and created that role that is so underpaid. And so as a business owner in the United States, it's your responsibility to put those roles in areas of the country where the pay is more, makes the folks happier in that area to do that job, because it frees you up to do the right thing with your other employees, right? So in logistics, you move your track and trace to another country. Well, now you can pay all of your US based salespeople an extra $20,000 a year so that they're not living paycheck to paycheck, and they can go and put their best effort on the phones to bring more money into your business that is then handled by happy operational workers who are going to stay for longer than 3 or 4 months because this is their career job. As a business owner, this is your holy grail where you've got the right pay in every position, and every position has that person motivated because they're able to provide for their family and have upward class mobility. At the end of the day, this is the dream, and having everybody within your company feeling that way is how you work towards a goal together a lot quicker. And so that's why I'm very bullish on outsourcing. That's why I love the new outsourcing, so to call it, where you're avoiding gig economy workers, you're avoiding task oriented workers, and you're going straight to the Fortune 100 in the Philippines and saying, hey, aren't you sick of riding that moped 3 hours into Manila? Wouldn't you like to be paid the way that you're watching people get paid in other countries? All you've got to do is work with Kyle. He'll find you a great company in the United States who believes everything that Kyle just said is happening with the economy, with the worldwide workforce, with technology. Um, if you agree with all those things, we can really help your business, and I love doing it. Again, it's a win-win. I'll leave you, kind of with on this comment with a little joke, right? I loved growing Yellow Diamond. It was a lot of fun growing a company that fast in logistics. But for everybody out there listening who's in logistics, it's tough, right? If you're early, they're mad. If you're late, they're mad. You're too expensive. In the logistics industry, there's a lot of hate, right? Your customers, I don't know if they love you. The carriers, I don't know if they love you, but I'll tell you this. At Thrivemodal, my US customers absolutely love me. We make them richer, we make their businesses run easier, we make them sleep better at night. The other great thing, the Filipinos love us as well. We're giving them upward career mobility. We're taking them from lower and middle class and getting them to upper class, elite upper class very quickly. And it's just a beautiful thing to watch. 10 years from now, I think 30 to 40% of any company in the US is going to have an offshore element to keep up and to compete cost effectively. And you can look at that again, whether it's slashing costs or whether it's doing the right thing to put money where it needs to be in the right spots in your company so that everybody, is.
I really appreciate kind of this term, the worldwide workforce. I like that one. Um, it was really good catching up with you, hearing about what you've been doing with your career since graduating, and what you've been able to accomplish. And thanks for sharing a little bit about all of it with us today, Kyle. Any last words?
No, well, yes, yes. Again, for me personally, to the audience, Nathan, another reason I've set up the business the way that it is with no upfront costs, no long-term contracts, is outsourcing used to be a tool of the big business, right? Only AT&T or Verizon could put a building in the Philippines and then put tons of people in it to really recognize these great gains. Now, with Wi-Fi, Filipinos are able to go work from home. US small businesses are able to afford marketing departments where they couldn't afford marketing departments in the past. There's just a lot of things that this is opening up, mainly for the small and medium-sized business. And I love helping people with this. So I don't care, if you've got a plumbing company or if you've got an IT services company, I'd love to run searches for you and show you just how good we are at this. At the end of the day, showcasing these people is what makes me happy. I wouldn't be in this seat if it wasn't for JP and those great people in the Philippines that I found, 10 years ago, pushing hard to build my logistics company. I take it seriously, and I want everybody in the United States to have the opportunity that I did. And the best way I can do that is introducing you to great people from the Philippines.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thanks for the time again, and we'll be in touch.
Cool. Thank you, Nathan.